In a single day, the world grows a little quieter as for remarkable lives take their final bow. Legends from distant corners of culture, music, war, and art leave behind stories that shape generations. Their voices, their courage, their talents, and their visions carried the weight of history and the beauty of human spirit. Today, we look back not with sorrow alone, but with gratitude for the paths they carved and the worlds they changed. Each life was a thread woven into the fabric of society, from the battlefields of Normandy to the bright lights of American soul, from the lens of English photography to the high towers of global business. Tonight, we remember them. Tragic news quietly settles over the world of photography today. Martin Parr's journey came to an end on December 6, 2025, closing the life of a man who spent 5 decades capturing the humor, contradictions, and fragile humanity tucked inside everyday life. He was known for bright colors, sharp timing, and an eye that seemed to understand people even better than they understood themselves. For many, his images were not just photographs. They were small mirrors of the world, sometimes funny, sometimes uncomfortable, always honest. He was born on May 23, 1952 in Surrey, England. Growing up in a quiet environment shaped by gentle family values and a growing interest in the small details of daily life, those early days were simple, but they planted the seed for what would later become his unmistakable style. People who knew him often said he watched the world with an unusual calm, noticing the things others ignored. His mother supported his early curiosity, and those simple family moments built the foundation for a lifetime behind the lens. In his teenage years, photography became more than a hobby. It became his language. He studied at Manchester Polytechnic, where his talent grew sharper. Professors often recalled how he would return from a simple walk with images that felt like full stories. His classmates remembered him as quiet, thoughtful, and always searching for meaning in ordinary scenes. That restless curiosity followed him throughout his entire career. By the 1980s, Martin Parr had introduced a style that felt entirely new. He used bright flash, vivid colors, and close-up framing to reveal social behaviors, cultural trends, and the small absurdities of modern life. People described his work as funny but human and sharp but kind. His photographs of British seaside towns became iconic. They were not glamorous or romantic, but they were real, and that honesty became his trademark. When news of his passing broke, tributes poured in from around the world. One of the first messages came from a fellow photographer who wrote, "Martin never judged the world. He simply held up a mirror and asked us to look." Another tribute from a young artist said, "His work taught us that everyday life is never boring. It's beautiful, messy, and worth paying attention to." These words capture the spirit of a man who spent his life chasing authenticity. In his work, Martin Parr did not chase perfection, he chased truth. Whether he photographed families on vacation, shoppers at a supermarket, or crowds at major festivals, he found stories hidden just beneath the surface. Every frame held a quiet commentary about the world, its joys, its contradictions, and its social layers. He once described humor as a doorway into understanding people, and his images used that doorway beautifully. As a member of Magnum Photos, one of the world's most respected photography collectives, Parr pushed documentary photography into new territory. He focused less on tragedy and more on culture, consumerism, and identity. His approach was bold at a time when many photographers still stayed within traditional boundaries. Some critics questioned his style in the beginning, but over time, the world realized how much depth his images carried. They were not jokes, they were observations, they were warnings, and many were emotional truths wrapped inside colorful scenes. In interviews, he often spoke with warmth and humility. He said he simply enjoyed watching people. He felt that everyday routines revealed the real story of society. He believed that photography should be accessible, honest, and slightly playful. Even in his later years, he preferred to work on the streets rather than stay in studios. He loved real moments, the kind that could not be staged. His projects took him across continents, from small towns in England to crowded cities in Asia, from busy beaches in Spain to quiet rural areas around the world. He searched for the same thing everywhere, the rhythm of ordinary life. And no matter where he went, he brought back images that carried his unmistakable signature. Friends often described him as patient and deeply kind. He listened more than he spoke. He looked people in the eye, understanding their stories long before he photographed them. A close friend shared a message online shortly after his death. Martin's greatest gift wasn't the camera, it was his empathy. He saw everyone as interesting, and he treated everyone with respect. That sentiment echoed through hundreds of tributes across social media. In the mid-body of his career, Parr shifted toward exploring global consumer culture. He noticed how advertising, fashion, and digital environments were shaping people's behavior. He used his lens to reveal these changes. His satirical tone became stronger. His colors became brighter. But even at his boldest, his work never lost its human touch. Every photograph still had a beating heart behind it. During the 1990s and early 2000s, he published a series of influential photo books that became essential reading for students of documentary photography. These books did more than display images, they shaped conversations. They challenged people to question their daily habits, their social rituals, and the meaning hidden inside modern life. Many museums and galleries across Europe, the United States, and Asia honored his work through major exhibitions. As the years passed, he remained active, energetic, and dedicated to mentoring young photographers. He created the Martin Parr Foundation to support new creative voices. He believed in giving opportunities to emerging talent, knowing that every generation sees the world differently. Through workshops, talks, and open exhibitions, he passed down the lessons he learned from his own humble beginnings. Even in the final years of his life, he kept photographing with the same curiosity he had as a teenager. Age did not slow him down. If anything, it sharpened his desire to keep documenting human behavior. He once said in an interview, "The world is always changing. That means the stories will never end." Those words now feel like a gentle farewell from a man who understood the flow of time. On the day he died, many described the loss as the end of an era. Some said it felt like a light had gone out in the world of visual storytelling. Others said it felt like losing a guide who helped them understand society's hidden humor and subtle truths. At exhibitions around the world, small gatherings formed where people stood quietly in front of his photographs, remembering, reflecting, and feeling grateful. One tribute from a museum curator captured the emotional weight of the moment. "Martin didn't teach us how to photograph. He taught us how to see." That message spread widely online, becoming one of the most shared quotes following his passing. His images of families eating ice cream on the beach, tourists posing awkwardly for photos, elderly couples sitting quietly on park benches, and strangers lost in their thoughts will continue to speak for generations. They are reminders of who we are, not the polished version we wish to show, but the real version that slips out when we are relaxed, distracted, or simply being ourselves. Martin Parr celebrated imperfection. He celebrated the humor of daily life, and he celebrated the quiet dignity inside every human story. His legacy is not built on grand events or dramatic scenes, it is built on small truths, carefully observed and respectfully captured. In the end, his work stands as a vast archive of human behavior, a colorful, honest, and sometimes ironic record of how we live, how we change, and how we connect with one another. His photographs remain powerful because they remind us of our shared humanity. They remind us that beauty exists in everyday routine, laughter in ordinary moments, and meaning in places we often overlook. As the world says goodbye, his legacy becomes a soft echo carried through galleries, books, and classrooms. His images will continue teaching future generations to slow down, pay attention, and find humor in the unfolding story of life. They will continue whispering the quiet message he lived by: every moment matters. And so, this chapter closes with gratitude for a man who turned simple scenes into cultural memory, a man who captured the truth of modern life with honesty and heart, a man whose lens taught the world to see itself clearly, bravely, and with a touch of gentle irony. Martin Parr leaves behind more than photographs. He leaves behind a way of looking at the world, a way that will continue shining long after the shutter has closed. Sad news settles over Dallas this morning, as a major figure in American business and sports is quietly remembered. Thomas O. Hicks Sr., one of the most influential dealmakers of his generation, passed away on December 6, 2025. His death marks the end of a long and complex journey, one shaped by bold ideas, high-stakes decisions, and a belief that American sports could be bigger, brighter, and more global than anyone imagined. For decades, his name carried weight in boardrooms, locker rooms, and financial circles across the country. Today, the city he helped shape pauses to reflect on the man behind the empire. He was born on February 19, 1946, in Texas, growing up in a family that valued hard work, responsibility, and loyalty. Those early lessons stayed with him for life. Even as a young boy, Hicks was driven. Teachers often recalled him as focused and curious, the kind of student who looked at the world and saw opportunities waiting to be built. That early spark later grew into the ambition that guided his career. After earning his education at the University of Texas, and later at USC, he stepped into the world of finance. With sharp instincts and unshakable confidence, the 1980s became his launching pad. It was the era of rapid deals and aggressive investments, and Hicks proved he understood the game better than most. He co-founded Hicks and Haas, a private equity firm that quickly earned a reputation for strategic acquisitions. and strong returns. His approach was precise. He believed in buying good companies, giving them structure and helping them grow. It was a style admired by colleagues and studied by competitors. Years later, he founded Hicks Sr. First, a firm that grew into one of the largest private equity players in the world. It managed billions, influenced markets, and became a symbol of modern investment strategy. Hicks pushed the boundaries of what financial firms could achieve inside the company. Many described him as demanding but inspiring. A former partner once said in an interview, "Tom taught us to take risks, but only the smart ones." He believed a good deal wasn't about luck, it was about discipline. That philosophy followed him into every chapter of his career. By the 1990s, Hicks was more than a financier. He had become a builder of institutions, and one of his greatest passions soon took center stage: sports. He believed that professional teams could thrive under business-minded leadership. He believed that sports weren't just entertainment, they were brands, communities, and national symbols. In 1995, he stepped into the world of hockey by purchasing the Dallas Stars. It was a bold move. Dallas was not yet known as a hockey town, but Hicks saw something others didn't. He believed the city needed a new kind of identity, one connected to ambition, teamwork, and national recognition. Under his leadership, the Stars rose in prominence, attendance grew, the fan base strengthened, and in 1999, the dream came true. The Dallas Stars lifted the Stanley Cup, delivering one of the greatest moments in Texas sports history. For many fans, that victory became part of their personal memories. One longtime supporter posted shortly after Hicks' passing, "He brought us a championship we will never forget. For that alone, he will always be part of Dallas." It was one of thousands of tributes that flooded social media, each remembering the shared joy of that historic season. But Hicks wasn't finished. He wanted to push Texas sports even further. Not long after his hockey success, he purchased the Texas Rangers, adding another major franchise to his growing legacy. The Rangers were entering a new era, and Hicks believed they could compete on a national level with the right leadership and investment. He funded stadium improvements, signed star players, and strengthened the franchise structure. While the Rangers faced financial turbulence in later years, many players still credit Hicks for laying the groundwork that allowed the team to evolve into a modern franchise. In the mid-body of his career, Hicks continued expanding his influence. His portfolio grew across multiple industries: food, energy, media, hospitality. He invested in brands that Americans saw every day, and behind the scenes, he mentored young executives, helping them navigate markets that were often unpredictable. Even during challenging times, Hicks carried a calm confidence that many found reassuring. The early 2000s brought one of the most ambitious moves of his life: the purchase of the English football giant Liverpool FC through a joint ownership deal. It was a moment that placed him on the international stage. Supporters had mixed reactions. Some admired the bold ambition, others worried about financial risks. The years that followed were complicated, marked by both optimism and tension. But even in the most difficult moments, Hicks remained firm in his belief that global sports could be transformed through modern business strategy. Years after the deal ended, analysts continued to reference his tenure as a symbol of the rapidly changing era of football ownership. Through every success and setback, Hicks' family stayed at the center of his life. He was a proud father, deeply connected to his children, and a steady presence during both business triumphs and personal trials. Family statements released after his passing described him as generous, loyal, and protective. His son, Thomas Hicks Jr., shared a simple message that resonated with many: "My father chased big dreams, but he never forgot who he was chasing them for." That message reflected the heart of a man often seen through the lens of wealth and power beneath the public image. Hicks carried personal values that came from his Texas roots: gratitude, hard work, and a sense of responsibility to the community. He supported charities, funded youth programs, and donated to universities across the state. He believed that success meant nothing if it didn't help others rise. Over the years, he received numerous awards recognizing his impact on business and leadership. Colleges honored him, sports organizations thanked him, philanthropic groups praised his contributions, but those close to him say the recognition was never his goal. He cared more about the projects he built, the teams he supported, and the communities he strengthened. In the latter part of his life, Hicks stepped back from the spotlight. He spent more time with family, enjoying quiet days and reflecting on decades of work. He continued offering advice to young entrepreneurs, encouraging them to take bold steps, but to remain grounded in integrity. Many described him as a mentor who listened carefully, spoke honestly, and believed deeply in the potential of others. When news of his death broke, tributes came from athletes, executives, and community leaders across the country. A former Dallas Stars player shared a message that captured the emotional weight of the moment. Tom wasn't just an owner. He believed in us, he believed in the city, and he believed in what sports could do for people. That quote became one of the most widely shared tributes of the day. As Dallas absorbs the loss, many remember Hicks not only for his business achievements but for the way he reshaped the city's identity. He brought national championships, built arenas, expanded franchises, and helped turn Dallas into a major hub for American sports. His vision changed how teams were operated. His strategies influenced how franchises across the country were bought, managed, and marketed. His impact on private equity remains part of financial history. He helped pioneer new approaches to mergers, acquisitions, and growth strategies. His work influenced generations of investors and executives who studied his methods closely. The firms he built continue to shape industries around the world, standing as part of the legacy he leaves behind. In the quiet reflections that follow his passing, many remember the determined young Texan who rose to become a national figure. They remember a businessman who dreamed big, took risks, and believed that history favored those who acted boldly. They remember a leader who helped shape the modern sports landscape through courage and innovation. And so, as this chapter closes, the farewell to Thomas O. Hicks Sr. carries a sense of gratitude. He leaves behind a transformed city, rebuilt teams, and an enduring influence across American sports and business. His name will continue to echo in stadiums, boardrooms, and classrooms, reminding future generations that ambition can reshape entire industries. His story ends, but the impact he made continues quietly, steadily, and deeply rooted in the places he helped build. Through every team he touched and every life he influenced, his legacy moves forward as a lasting part of American history. A quiet sadness settles across the music world today, as the soul of a generation falls silent. Stephen Lee Cropper, the legendary guitarist whose signature sound carried the heartbeat of American soul, passed away on December 3, 2025. His death closes a final chapter of a man whose hands shaped the rhythm of an era. For more than 6 decades, his guitar lines defined feelings that words could never fully express. Today, musicians, fans, and generations of listeners pause to honor the man they simply called Steve. He was born on October 21, 1941 in Willow Springs, Missouri. Growing up in a small town, where music wasn't just entertainment, it was a lifeline. From a young age, Cropper felt drawn to the rhythm of everyday sounds, the hum of the radio, the shuffle of feet across wooden floors, the laughter of neighbors drifting through open windows. These simple noises formed the early soundtrack of a life that would help shape American music forever. Cropper picked up his first guitar as a teenager. Friends later said he practiced for hours without stopping, not out of duty but out of pure love. He wanted to understand sound. He wanted to translate emotion into strings. In those early years, he didn't know he was preparing for a historic career. He just knew he felt alive every time he played. When his family moved to Memphis, everything changed. Memphis in the 1950s was a city where music poured from every corner: blues, gospel, rock and roll, and soul rising from small clubs and crowded streets. Cropper absorbed it all. He joined high school bands, explored new styles, and sharpened the timing that later became his trademark. In 1957, he co-founded the Royal Spades, a local band that soon evolved into something bigger. That band would eventually become Booker T and the MGS. In 1962, the world heard something unforgettable. It was the sound of Green Onions, a track that exploded across the radio, carried by the band's tight rhythm and Cropper's clean, confident guitar. The song didn't just become a hit, it became a cultural moment. A new voice had entered the scene, and that voice carried the future of soul. The mid-body years of his career were filled with shorter, intense moments of creativity. Inside the walls of Stax Records, Cropper found his true home. Stax was more than a studio. It was a meeting place for talent, culture, and innovation. And Cropper became its guiding hand. He played, wrote, arranged, and shaped countless recordings. His guitar formed the backbone of classics like Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay, a song he co-wrote with Otis Redding in the final days of their collaboration. Many fans still say that track feels like a quiet conversation between two friends, frozen in time. Stax insiders often recalled their work with Cropper in soft, emotional tones. One longtime engineer once said, "Steve didn't just play guitar, he understood people. He knew how to turn their stories into sound." That quote resurfaced repeatedly after news of his death broke, shared by musicians across social media, who grew up studying his style. Working alongside Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, Wilson Pickett, Carla Thomas, and dozens of other legends, Cropper became the silent architect behind some of the greatest songs ever recorded. His riffs were simple, strong, and unforgettable. He didn't rely on flashy solos or complicated techniques. Instead, he played with purpose, every note placed exactly where the heart needed it to be. That approach became his legacy. In the quieter moments of the mid-1960s, Cropper discovered that his true power wasn't in being seen, but in being heard. He wasn't the loudest musician in the room, he wasn't the most dramatic, but he understood the exact moment when a guitar line could change the feeling of a song. His tone was warm, steady, and honest, and in a world filled with noise, his playing became a calm voice of expression. In the 1970s and 1980s, his influence only grew stronger. He joined the Blues Brothers Band in 1978, bringing his soulful background into a new era of music and film. Audiences who didn't grow up with Stax records now discovered his sound through a new cultural lens. Younger listeners admired his confidence. Older fans recognized the familiar strength in his playing. Through every performance, he carried the spirit of Memphis soul. His collaborations crossed genres, generations, and expectations. He worked with Ringo Starr, Elton John, Neil Young, Rod Stewart, and many others. Each project showed his versatility and deep respect for music. Fellow artists often described him as humble, soft-spoken, and deeply thoughtful. Despite his legendary status, he treated everyone from young players to the biggest stars with the same level of kindness. In interviews, Cropper kept his tone gentle and grounded. He spoke about music as a form of human connection. He believed that songs were bridges between people, memories, and emotions. He once said in an interview, "A great song is just a conversation that never ends." That quote has become one of the most shared tributes after his passing, appearing on fan pages, music forums, and Instagram posts from artists who grew up idolizing him. As the decades passed, Cropper became a mentor to younger musicians. He offered guidance without pressure, encouraging players to find their own voice instead of copying his. He understood that music changed with every generation, but emotion never went out of style. Many rising guitarists credit him for teaching them that simplicity can be powerful, and that soul comes from honesty, not speed. Even in his later years, Cropper continued performing with the same quiet joy he carried as a teenager. His movements were slower, his hair grayer, but the music still flowed from him like a gentle river. He remained connected to the stage, the studio, and the sound he loved. His concerts were filled with fans of all ages, some who had followed him since the 60s, others who discovered him through documentaries, playlists, or stories passed down from their parents. When the news of his passing spread, tributes came from every corner of the world. Musicians from pop, rock, R&B, and country honored him with emotional posts. One artist wrote, "Steve's guitar raised me. His sound carried the history of soul, and it will keep teaching us long after he's gone." Fans shared memories of road trips, family gatherings, and quiet nights spent listening to Stax hits that became the soundtrack of their lives. Music schools held small gatherings, playing his riffs in tribute. His influence stretched far beyond charts or awards. His style shaped the foundation of modern rhythm guitar. His songwriting helped define the golden age of soul. His arrangements created depth and emotional weight in songs that became timeless. And his presence in the studio lifted younger musicians, giving them courage to trust their instincts. As the world reflects on Stephen Lee Cropper, people remember not just the guitarist, but the man behind the music. A man with gentle humor, steady focus, and the rare ability to make others feel seen. A man who carried the soul of Memphis into every note he played. A man whose humility stood in contrast to the enormous legacy he built. His story is woven into the fabric of American music. His sound shaped decades of emotion, and his influence continues through every new musician who discovers the power of a simple, heartfelt riff. His guitar will no longer play, but the echoes remain soft, steady, and full of life. As this chapter closes, the farewell to Stephen Lee Cropper carries deep gratitude. His music raised generations, comforted hearts, and created memories that will never fade. His riffs shaped an era, his spirit shaped an industry, and his legacy will continue shaping the soul of American music for years to come. His hands are still now, but the sound he gave the world keeps moving, and in every corner of music where honesty and emotion still matter, his voice will always be heard. Tragic news confirmed this morning from Maine, where the passing of Charles Norman Shea, a Penobscot elder and decorated war hero, has left a nation reflecting on courage, heritage, and the quiet strength of one remarkable life. Born on September 2, 1924 in Old Town, Maine, Shea grew up deeply rooted in the traditions of the Penobscot Nation. From an early age, he learned the values of respect for the land, community, and ancestral lessons that would guide him through the most harrowing chapters of the 20th century. He carried these teachings with him when the world demanded bravery, Beyond measure. In 1944, as the Second World War raged across Europe, Shay joined the United States Army. He trained rigorously, understanding the weight of responsibility upon his shoulders. Assigned to the 1st Infantry Division, he would soon face a crucible of combat at Omaha Beach. On D-Day, June 6, 1944, under relentless gunfire and chaos, Shay fought alongside his comrades, helping fellow soldiers navigate the deadly surf and sand. Surviving the landing was itself a testament to courage and calm under pressure. Shay's heroism did not end with World War II. He rejoined military service during the Korean War, again stepping forward with unwavering resolve. His decorations earned, not for self-glory, but for steadfast service, became symbols of a life defined by commitment to others. Charlie was never one to seek attention, a fellow veteran shared in a 2019 interview. He did what was needed quietly and with honor, yet, beyond the battlefield, Shay carried the heart of his people. Returning to Maine, he became a leader and teacher in the Penobscot Nation, preserving ceremonies, language, and traditions for younger generations. He worked tirelessly to ensure that Indigenous stories would not fade, linking the past to the future with patient devotion. His life bridged worlds, the duty of a soldier and the calling of a cultural guardian. Friends and family recall Shay's humility and kindness. His niece, Marjorie Shay, told local reporters, "Uncle Charlie never boasted about his service. What mattered most to him was that we remembered where we came from, and that we carried our traditions proudly." Social media posts from across the country celebrated his 100th birthday just last year, highlighting both his military valor and his role as a mentor, elder, and cultural ambassador. Those who met Shay describe a quiet strength that radiated in everyday life. At community gatherings, he often shared stories of his youth and service, imparting lessons in perseverance, respect, and gratitude. His presence was a reminder that history is not only written in books or medals, but in the lived experiences, passed from one generation to the next. Shay's influence reached far beyond Maine. Veterans organizations honored him as a symbol of courage and endurance, while cultural institutions recognized his efforts to sustain Indigenous heritage. His life became an emblem of resilience, showing that even amid war and hardship, one could maintain integrity, compassion, and pride in one's roots. In interviews over the decades, Shay often reflected on the intertwined nature of his past. "Serving my country and serving my people, they are not separate," he once said. "Both call for respect and both demand responsibility. You live with the consequences, but you also live with the hope of leaving something behind." These words encapsulate a philosophy that shaped his choices and inspired those around him. Charles Norman Shay's passing at the age of 101 leaves a profound silence, yet his legacy resounds in both history and living memory. Tributes poured in from veterans groups, Indigenous communities, and civic leaders alike. Maine Governor Jonna Mills issued a statement. Charles Shay exemplified courage, honor, and a lifelong commitment to preserving our heritage. His story reminds us of the sacrifices made for freedom, and the importance of remembering our shared history. As we look back on his life, moments emerge that define a century of experience. The landing at Omaha Beach, the return to Maine with a mission to teach and preserve, and the countless lives he touched through guidance and mentorship. Shay's footsteps were steady, and his voice, though often soft, carried the weight of generations. In remembering Charles Norman Shay, we celebrate a life that refused to waver. His story is more than one of military distinction. It is a testament to the enduring power of identity, tradition, and service. The lessons he imparted continue to ripple through families, communities, and the nation. Today, we honor a man who carried both his rifle and his culture with equal commitment. We recall his courage under fire, his devotion to the Penobscot Nation, and the humility with which he navigated every challenge. As one community member reflected, he taught us that bravery isn't just in battle, it's in living with purpose and protecting what you love. With Charles Norman Shay's final salute, the stories of the day come together for lives, for legacies, each echoing in history. His memory endures not only in medals or photographs, but in the songs, languages, and traditions he preserved. A warrior, a teacher, a bridge between generations, his life reminds us that the true measure of service is a difference left behind. Charles Norman Shay's journey may have ended, but the lessons he carried, the courage he embodied, and the heritage he protected will continue to inspire, echoing through time as a guiding light for all who follow. His story stands as a testament to a life lived fully, honorably, and with unwavering dedication to both nation and people.